The teeth and jaw is one of the most nerve-dense regions of the entire body, wired directly to the largest sensory nerve in the head, the trigeminal nerve, meaning jaw posture is connected to your brain, your breath, your emotions, and your entire body. This interconnectedness is one of the most overlooked truths about the human anatomy, as when one sees oneself as separate from nature, one begins to see separation inside of themselves. As if the jaw, the breath, the posture, and your emotions are all isolated systems, instead of being one unified whole. And because of this separation, many people have completely missed the significance of the teeth, the jaw, and the posture that shapes them. We have forgotten how these structures are developed and what they reflect about our internal state and our health. If you look around today, almost everyone has some kind of jaw or dental issue. Crooked teeth, narrow palates, TMJ tension, crowded teeth, constant cavities, issues we have come to accept as completely normal. But when we look at our ancestors, these problems were almost non-existent. Their jaw and dental structures were naturally wider, more uniform, and more aligned. And their teeth were often noticeably wider than modern dentistry. And so the question becomes, what has changed? In the early 1900s, a dentist named Weston A. Price set out to answer the same question, traveling around the world to the Swiss Alps, the Scottish Islands, Inuit villages, Native American tribes, and Polynesian cultures, documenting groups who still lived on traditional diets. And what he found is that whenever people ate their ancestral foods, natural, nutrient-dense, and that required real chewing, their teeth were naturally straight, evenly spaced, cavity-free, supported by a wide, strong jaw and a full facial development. This stayed consistent across completely different cultures and genetics. It was not until these same communities gained access to processed foods, white flour, refined sugar, canned goods, that the next generation's face began to change. Within a single generation, new genes were being activated. Jaws narrowed, teeth crowded, dental arches collapsed, cavities skyrocketed, airway size reduced, and facial structure weakened. Same parents, same genetics. The only difference was the food. And so Price photographed siblings where the older child, raised on traditional food, had a broad, strong face, while the younger sibling, raised on modern foods, had a narrow jaw, crooked teeth, and far more dental issues. And this was happening worldwide. Although this scientific observation was made over centuries ago, the issue has only deepened. As processed foods became normal, each generation developed weaker jaws, more crowded teeth, and more dependence on dental intervention. As with the world being run by money, science and the medical field are no different. And so, still continuing the thought process of isolation and greed, we continued to spiral. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, industrial farms such as phosphate fertilizer production and aluminum smelting were having an issue with a waste product called fluoride. These industries released fluoride compounds into the air and water, causing livestock poisoning, destruction of vegetation, human respiratory issue, and tooth and bone damage in nearby communities, leading to huge lawsuits against companies like Alcoa due to the fluoride pollution being harmful and economically costly. But around the same time, a dentist named Frederick McKay investigated communities where children's teeth developed brownish stains, now called dental fluorisis, but it was those same children that had dramatically fewer cavities, sparking a dental interest in fluoride. And so companies like Alcoa stood to benefit tremendously if fluoride could be reclassified as a health benefit, rather than a toxic pollutant. And after several studies funded partially by these industries, the US Public Health Service began to add fluoride to the drinking water. This dose was far lower than the concentration that was originally causing harm, but this was also what made it concerning. Because instead of eliminating fluoride exposure, we introduced a chronic, low-level intake of an industrial compound. Not enough to cause immediate noticeable toxicity, but enough to accumulate in the bones, the pineal gland, and the tissues over a lifetime, slowly changing our hormonal glands, our bone structures, and epigenetically changing our DNA. Not fixing the root of the problem, but simply trying to manage symptoms while ignoring the deeper dietary and development issues. And from there on, the consumption of fluoride, processed foods, and low nutritional foods began to skyrocket. Soon fluoride was in every toothpaste, every dental commercial, every household. And behind the scenes, many of the corporations promoting fluoride were also tied to the processed food industries. Two profit streams feeding the same health problem. The claim is that fluoride can strengthen enamel on the surface of the tooth, creating a protective layer. Since it's so toxic, bacteria would not interact. The same bacteria, the microbiome of the mouth, that is responsible for the health of the teeth, mouth, jaw, and body. And with a continuous steady increase of fluoride throughout the years. The story of fluoride was built on greed rather than truth. Modern science is finally beginning to revisit these old insights, recognizing that real tooth health comes from giving the body the minerals it actually needs. For example, nanohydroxyapatite, the natural building block for enamel and dentin, which supports true remineralization and strengthens the entire oral environment. I mean, just go use the nanohydroxyapatite toothpaste and feel the difference in teeth health, strength, and whiteness. At the same time, we're also beginning to acknowledge the health burden created by relying on fluoride, a toxic industrial byproduct, instead of addressing the real root cause. This non-natural compound has been absorbed into society through drinking water, bathing, and daily brushing, saturating the body in ways we were never meant to experience. Along with this laundry list of poisoning that's happening in the body, one that you might have heard of is the calcification of the pineal gland. As this tiny structure in the brain is responsible for regulating circadian rhythm, deeper states of awareness, and hormonal regulation. And so calcification of the endocrine gland means the slowing down and malfunction of these processes. And across time and space, all traditions have connected the pineal gland as the physical structure of the third eye. From Christianity, Egyptians, India's yoga, and Chinese Taoism links the pineal gland to the center of intuition and spiritual perception. The seat of clarity. The place where one sees truth directly, rather than becoming lost in an illusion or deception. So when we put it all together, the rise of processed foods, chronic fluoride exposure, and the weakening of natural biological systems, we begin to understand why the modern mouth is struggling. As the real foundation of all health, including dental and jaw health, has always been nutrition, posture, the breath, and the microbiomes. It is the minerals we take in, the food we chew, the breath we breathe, the bacteria we cultivate, and the natural environment our teeth grows within. When the microbiome is healthy, the jaw develops fully. The palate widens, teeth align, the airways open, and the whole face grows open to connection. But when the microbiome is disrupted through poor diet, chronic chemicals, and lack of real chewing, the entire structure of the jaw begins to collapse. This is why understanding the posture of the teeth and jaw is so important, because we must see things fully holistically, from all angles, in which the posture leads us to understanding the interconnectedness of the body and this modern issue. Today, the posture of the jaw has become a trend. Looks maxing, mewing, mouth breathing. While rooted in some truth, most people are touching the shallow end of this topic, still caught up in the ideas of separation and judgment. As this is just not about looking better, but overall health, breathing better, sleeping better, and developing the face and anatomy to be more connected. And so the importance of mouth breathing versus nasal breathing and mewing is important for the posture of the mouth and the health of the body. As naturally, you want your tongue to lay on the roof of the mouth, pushing the teeth out wider, allowing for more open nasal cavity for the breath to come through. as well as activate healing processes in the nervous system, such as the parasympathetic nervous system and the cerebral spinal fluid. And same with nasal breathing, as mouth breathing activates fight or flight in the body and can kill off the microbiome of the mouth when overdone. Furthermore, the tongue at the roof of the mouth is foundational for one of the main energy circuits in Taoist alchemy, as this is one of the connections that activates the microcosmic orbit, essential for health, energy circulation, and spiritual growth. When it comes to the teeth and jaw posture, we can look at the many systems of connection throughout the body. Firstly, we must look at the jaw and its connection to the rest of the body. We can recognize that the relationship between the upper and lower jaw is the same relationship in which the hip is held, with an overbite often reflecting an anterior pelvic tilt, where the pelvis tips forward, and the underbite mirroring a posterior pelvic tilt. While not always one-to-one, there is a deep relationship between the cranial and sacral, and postural relationships, with this relationship being accompanied with the posture of the spine. This also applies to the horizontal tilt of the hips. If one side of the jaw bites harder or carries more tension, you can often feel a corresponding dip or elevation on the same or opposite hip, depending on your compensation patterns. So along with fixing the posture of the jaw, one must also fix the posture of the hips and the spine. And so, with the tilt of the hips, the flexibility of the spine, and the placements of the cranium all play an important role into the structure of the jaw and teeth. The teeth and jaw make up one of the most nerve-dense regions in your entire body. This region connects the entire nervous system through the trigeminal nerve, one of the largest and most powerful sensory nerves in the human body. These nerves don't just connect to the face, they connect directly into the brainstem, influencing posture, breath, emotion, and the entire body's alignment. And when we follow these neural pathways deeper, we begin to see an incredible map. Each tooth is linked to a specific vertebra, a specific organ, and even a specific region of the body. The mouth becomes a microcosm of the entire system, a reflection of what happens throughout the body's structure, energy, and internal health. As each tooth has a nerve branch that travels through the trigeminal nerve into the brainstem, allowing the tooth to act as a sensor and be connected to the spinal segments, organ reflexes, muscle chains, and postural patterns. With pain, infection, or imbalances, and a single tooth can show up as a tension, weakness, or dysfunction in seemingly unrelated areas of the body, or vice versa. The front teeth, the incisors, connect to the C1 and C2 vertebrae, the kidney and bladder, and the urinary tract and reproductive organs, as well as the front line posture, with the canines corresponding to C3 and C4 in the neck, the liver and gallbladder system, eye muscles, and the deep hip rotators, with the premolars linking the mid-thoracic vertebra of T1 through T4, the lungs and large intestines, and tied to the upper back and chest, with the molars linking to the lower thoracic and lumbar vertebra of T5 through L2, the digestive organs such as stomach, spleen, and pancreas, and so also the digestive function, as well as the core muscle. And the wisdom teeth corresponds with the heart and small intestines, the autonomic nervous system regulation, deep cranial and sacral rhythm, as well as jaw width and airway space. With the lower molars associated with L3 and the psoas, TMJ mechanics associated with L4 and SI joint stability, and the lower incisors and mandibular position corresponding with L5 and the pelvic floor, as well as glute activation. And the entire posture of the jaw, being associated with the sacrum, parasympathetic nervous system, the pelvic floor, and cranial sacral rhythm. Now, it's not just the nervous system and the neural connections that show us the interconnectedness of the body to the jaw, but also can be seen in the fascia. As the fascia is a continuous web of connective tissue that wraps every muscle, organ, bone, and nerve, as it is the fascia that acts as another bridge that connects the jaw to the rest of the body. The jaw sits at the very top of the deep front line, one of the main fascial chains that runs through the entire body, as this line connects the tongue, jaw, hyoid bone, neck flexors, diaphragm, psoas, pelvic floor, and inner leg. So any tension in the jaw travels down this line, and any tension in the hips, pelvis, or diaphragm travels back up to the jaw. And so this is why jaw tension is associated with neck tension, pelvic tilt with bite changes, tongue posture with spine alignment, TMJ dysfunction with diaphragm restriction, and mouth breathing with collapsed posture. When the jaw is clenched or misaligned, it tightens the fascia of the neck. This pulls the head forward, shifts the cervical spine, and forces the diaphragm to compensate. The diaphragm then changes how the psoas fires, which alters the alignment of the pelvis. And suddenly, the entire posture of the body shifts because of the jaw. And the opposite is also true. When the pelvis tilts, when the psoas is tight, or when the diaphragm becomes restricted, the tension moves upwards to the jaw, changing how the teeth meet and how the bite develops. The third way in which the mouth is connected to the rest of the body is through the microbiome of the mouth. As this is crucial to the beginning steps in digestion, with the entire ecosystem being way over 700 species of bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms, forming the first line of communication with your immune system, your lungs, your gut, and even your brain. And so with every swallow, breath, and every bit of food you eat, the oral microbiome sends information to the rest of the body. A healthy oral bacteria protects the teeth, supports the gum, regulates inflammation, and helps guide immune response. But when the ecosystem is disrupted, the entire body feels it. These living organisms share information and communicates throughout the entire body, allowing one to adapt to the environment. And the jaw posture shapes this microbiome as well, as the nasal breathing supports beneficial bacteria, while mouth breathing dries the mouth and feeds an imbalance of bacteria. Poor tongue posture narrows the palate, making it harder to breathe, leading to this mouth breathing. And the acidity can shift with processed foods, shifting the oral pH for more of an imbalance of bacteria overgrowth. So it's the jaw posture that not only shapes the structure of the face and body, but also its biology and chemistry. To bring it full circle, it is super important for us in this modern world of ultra-processed food to slow down our eating and let the communication really occur. So eat your water and drink your food, allowing the microbiome of the mouth to gain its nutrients and send information down the digestive tract, as well as allowing the breath and the nasal microbiome to also communicate. What modern science describes as the microbiome of the mouth, lungs, gut directly corresponds with the ancient science of Taoist alchemy and the Dantians, with the nasal and mouth microbiomes being associated with the upper Dantian, the lung microbiome with the middle Dantian, and the gut microbiome being that of the lower Dantian, both talking about aspects of the body in which life force is stored, transformed, and distributed. This mirror remains to be the same across all the modern anatomy and the inner energetic systems. And the teeth and jaw have a deep energetic connection throughout the whole body, in which mirrors a lot of the modern anatomy understanding. Using the meridians, the energetic rivers of the body, we can see what tooth is connected to aspects of the body, such as organs, as well as emotional connections, and even karma. The front teeth, the central and lateral incisors, connected the water meridians of kidney and bladder, connecting it to Jing and the lower Dantian, ancestral chi, and the element of water, having an emotional connection to survival or fear and deep vitality or depletion. The canines correspond with the wood meridians of liver and gallbladder, connecting our ability to see clearly both energetically and physically, and make decisions. With emotionally, these teeth reveal our relationship with courage, anger, and direction. First premolars is associated with the lung meridians, governing breath, boundaries, and the ability to let go, connecting with the metal element and the emotions of release and grief. The second premolars is associated with other metal meridians, the large intestine, the organs of purification and elimination, and so emotionally, it ties up to control, rigidity, and elimination. The first molar sits on the stomach meridian, associated with digestion of food and life experiences, and the earth element, emotionally tied to the feeling of being overwhelmed and assimilation. With the second molar corresponding to the spleen and pancreas meridian, the other earth meridian, emotionally associated with overthinking and self-worth. And finally, the third molars, the wisdom teeth, which correspond with the 5 meridians of the heart and small intestines, emotionally dealing with the inner truth, alignment, and clarity. Now going deeper in the layers beyond the physical and beyond the subtle body, we reach the karmic body. This layer where ancestral patterns, emotional imprints, and past life memories are stored. And the teeth are one of these clearest mirrors of the hidden layer. You can split the mouth into 4 ancestral quadrants, the upper right quadrant being the paternal yang, the father's father side, with themes of direction, discipline, outward purpose, and masculine structure. Upper left quadrant being the maternal yang, the mother's father, with themes of protection, boundaries, leadership, and ancestral masculine imprints. Lower right quadrant is the paternal yin, the father's mother, with themes of subconscious emotional patterns, survival fears, and inherited trauma. And the lower left quadrants being maternal yin, the mother's mother, with themes of intuition, nurturing, epigenetic emotional memory, and feminine root patterns. So each quadrant acts like a doorway into the stories carried by the lineage, the strength, the wounds, fears, gifts, and the unresolved lessons. This goes far beyond just biological lineage, but also rooted in past lives. And so imbalances of these teeth may correspond with karmic imbalances, either through this life's relationship, ancestral karma, or past life karma. While there is so much more to explore with the anatomy of the teeth, I want to touch upon other key aspects that the modern person may run into. As dental intervention has become mainstream, it has become lucrative and oftentimes unnecessary. Braces, retainers, extractions, wisdom teeth pulling, and root canals often work against the natural architecture and intelligence of the body. While this is not happening out of malice, it is out of misunderstanding. While modern orthodontics focus on straightening teeth from the outside, it does not really address the whole picture holistically. Missing jaw posture, tongue posture, breathing mechanics, nutrition, and overall spinal alignment, ending up forcing the teeth into alignment without changing the patterns that cause the misalignment in the first place. This is why relapse is so common, teeth crowd again, TMJ pain occurs or increases, breathing worsens, the palate narrows more over time, or even giving a prescription for a retainer for life. While I'm not saying this is all the cases, I am saying we are overdoing it by a lot. For starters, the permanent retainer can cause so much issues throughout the whole body, not allowing the body, through all the interconnective systems I have explained, to work in harmony, as the jaw and teeth should move around and change positions with the rest of the body. Then there's the wisdom teeth. As we have become so disconnected from nature, our ancestors, and from inner wisdom, we started to not only have wisdom teeth be affected by the jaw, coming in misaligned due to the modern society karma, but now ripping them out of people, causing even more trauma in the body, and claiming that we are evolving out of this part of the body, like it is useless, disrespecting the intelligence of nature, God itself. And then there's root canals, a controversial procedure in dentistry in which kills the tooth, removes the nerve, and leaves the tooth as a dead structure, disconnecting it entirely from the body. If you want to learn more about this craziness of root canals, there's an excellent documentary called The Root Cause. I'll link it in the description. So when we take a step back and look at the jaw, the teeth, the posture, and the microbiomes, we begin to see clearly the interconnectedness of the body, and also the depths of misunderstanding that has taken root in modern society through generations of profit-driven approaches to health. as there's nothing wrong with a crooked smile, but the story behind it is worth knowing. That's it for today's video. Like, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, or topics that you want me to talk about. If you want to go deeper, I'll leave links in the description below. Thanks for watching. Peace.